All right, Shalom. I'd like to start off with saying Kal Halayim La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Harikakudash my mouth. Double honors to the elder apostles, a great millstone, and my elder Herawan as well. Salutation to the argument that are pushing this truth and sincerity and truth. And peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. And I'm Kanak on by Yashar Aleph from the Lions in the Yashar Aleph camp. And just want to go into these two articles that came up on my news feed today, around 2 hours ago, and both of the titles of the articles are pretty similar. One says Russia orders troops into eastern Ukraine, and the other one is titled Vladimir Putin has officially ordered Russian troops into eastern Ukraine. All right. So there you have it. As basically that's part of Ezekiel chapter 38 coming to pass, man, because ultimately Russia is trying to stop NATO from moving westward, but is also trying to regain their status as the Soviet Union. All right. Excuse me. And so within that, they've already, in 2014, they've already annexed parts of Ukraine. Was it Crimea, if I'm not mistaken? Back to become part of Russia again, like it once was. And ultimately, Russia's going to be looking to get other nations to join forces and separate from NATO, or but a lot of people are saying Ukraine wants to maintain their independence, but then they want to join NATO for military stability or whatever. Like, who knows what's going on in their mind? But we all know this is a doing of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and things, Russia being the end, being the bear that's going to be able to take down America. Confidence is being built up right now, and that's all going according to prophecy of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. All right. So this is Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. It says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against it." All right. So right there it's talking about Gog, Moscow, the Kremlin, and Magog being Russia. All right. And Meshach being northern, like USSR, Northern Eurasia. All right. So now, with those sections broken up, there's no longer a Soviet Union. You have Russia. All right. So Russia's trying to build back that force behind the Soviet Union, and ultimately, what's NATO was put together as to be the adversary. NATO and America were put together to be the adversaries and to keep Russia and China at bay. All right. So it says, "And say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal." Right. So even though the Lord's raising them up, just like he rose up Pharaoh, he's still against them, and that's just being Edom separated from Edom. All right. It says, verse 3, it says, "And say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all them clothed with all sorts of armor, even as great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." All right. So you've had a heavy increase of military artillery in all these different countries, and these countries, there's going to be certain countries that's going to join forces with Russia, and they're going to have that Soviet Union type power and status that they have once had at one time before. All right, before the Soviet Union was crashed or was brought down or broken up. All right. Yeah, let me keep going. As a matter of fact, let me go into this article a little bit. Well, Verse 5, it says, Persia, Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya, Africa, and with them, all them with shields and helmets, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togomar of the north quarter, and all his bands, and many people with thee. It says, Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, and thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So these other nations are gaining confidence when they see Russia going up against NATO and the United States and the European Union, which is the European Union, the dragon, which is a financial backbone of what you see here. And NATO in America is just the muscle. NATO really is the muscle, and America is the hammer. All right, the hammer, the tool that they're using to bring stress on all the other nations, and that's the whole setup. All right, talks about that in Isaiah chapter 14. All right, it says Vladimir Putin has officially ordered Russian troops into eastern Ukraine. Vladimir Putin, using false and unproven reports as a justification, has ordered Russian troops into Kremlin-backed areas of Ukraine on what he calls a peacekeeping mission. All right, so remember it was said once before that Russia's going to pull a false flag and to find a reason to go into Ukraine. So now they're saying false information is he's using that as an excuse to go into Ukraine. But we all know it's a setup. All right, it says Dnipro, Ukraine. Vladimir Putin ordered Russian troops into eastern Ukraine Monday, authorizing an invasion and threatening a large-scale military conflict that could put thousands of lives in danger. Right. So this is going into what we were talking about with Ezekiel 38. All right. And ultimately, it's going to lead to Russia coming up against America, giving them the spirit of the Medes. All right. All right, just let me go back in Ezekiel real quick. It's Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 8. It says, After many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years, thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and gather out many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they that dwell safely, all of them. And thou shalt ascend. The point is in verse 10. It says, Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, but thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come unto thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And that was the point, right? Because at one point in time, Vladimir Putin was only talking about, peace, 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 just stop NATO from expanding west. But now, like the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to put an evil thought into Putin's head, a thought in his head, and he shall come forth with an evil thought. So eventually he's going to have nothing but war on his mind, man. And you're seeing it physically escalate in that manner right now. All right, back into the article. It says, after a frenzied day of failed diplomacy, the Russian president recognized the independence of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, two areas that are not independent but along with Ukraine and but belong to Ukraine and were taken by Russia during a war it started 8 years ago. Putin, all right, those are the two places that they annexed. So Putin reacting to clearly bogus and unproven reports as well as choreographed appeals from the Donetsk and Luhansk leader under his control to provide military assistance, ordered his troops on Monday into those territories on a peacekeeping mission. It says several news agencies, including Interfax and Reuters, reported columns of armed military vehicles moving through the territory of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. Putin moving troops into these territories and taking control of them is how he annexed the Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea. Right, it was Crimea in 2014. That's what I thought. It says a mission could put regular Russian military forces in direct armed conflict with Ukraine forces, raising the prospect of a larger invasion of Ukraine that Western governments have warned could trigger a wide-scale humanitarian crisis. Wow. All right, so basically all things going to happen, and then what's going to happen next? The mark of the beast. It's going to have to, the MOTB is going to have to be pushed, the Charagma. And then after that, straight destruction for this place. So you're going to have little wars going on before the climax and for noonday when the missiles come and Yahweh Shai shows up. It says, and cause barely trained civilians to take up arms and defend their country. Wow, they're talking about the draft. All right. Ukraine's government currently has no presence in the Donetsk, I can't even read that German stuff, and Luhansk regions, and it is unclear if Putin ordering a large portion of his army there would be considered an invasion of Ukraine by Western allies. The muddled nature of Putin's action is this case taking over huge swaths of other countries years ago, using fake reasons to ratchet up the tensions, then increasing his country's formal presence there is a hallmark of how he tries to exert influence in the world. But that sounds like America. That sounds like Esau, period. But that sounds like what America's been doing all this time, and you're going to try to point that finger at somebody else. Wow. All right. It says, we are committed to peace and diplomacy. We are on our land. We are not afraid of anyone or anything, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said in an early morning televised address, adding, "We will not give anything to anyone, and we are sure of that." All right. Wow, so this is where Russia is. I'm looking at a map right now, and it shows Donetsk and Luhansk, whatever that is, the two places where Russia sent troops in. All right. It says it was not immediately clear whether the Russian troops would be confined to the two separate territories. A Ukrainian commander in the frontline city of Avdiivka told Fuzz Press News that Ukrainian military leadership had not given any orders to respond to Putin's move, except to be covered with armor and watch for drones, a tall tale sign of an impending attack. The commander, who asked that his name not be used for security reasons, said he had watched with alarms as Putin spoke in Moscow, and claimed that Ukraine was not a real country but merely a place invaded by Russia and the Polaskivis. The commander said that his position had been under heavy mortar fire for days and feared that the fighting there would now grow worse. Shortly after Putin's announcement, President Joe Biden called Zelensky and said he would impose further sanctions on Russia. Kremlin recognized on the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic as independent requires a swift and firm response, and he will take appropriate steps to coordinate with partners. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tweeted. All right, so now these sanctions are not gonna do anything. So threatening with sanctions, let me see something. threatening with sanctions is not going to do anything. I was looking for a precept real quick. So because there's no kind of there's nothing that's gonna, once Russia has his mind made up according to Yahweh Shem Yahushai, when Yahweh Shem Yahushai flips that switch, there's nothing that they're gonna be able to do or say to stop Russia from going forward. All right. It says the EU said there would be sanctions and called the recognition of blatant violation of international law. Like America doesn't do that all the time. I mean, Putin waged war against his neighbor 8 years ago, saying he sees Ukraine as shifting too close to the Western influence and as his historic part of Russia. Since 2014, Putin has occupied the two territories in their country's east and taken over Crimea, keeping the fighting at a grinding simmer and killing 14,000 people in the process. All right. It says the order came following numerous assurance by Russian government that it was not planning to invade and months of diplomatic maneuvering on the part of Western governments and Kiev to try to avert a new war. But week by week and month by month, the evidence was there. Russia amassed an army of more than 157,000 troops and war machines around Ukraine as civilians prepare go bags to spruce up bomb shelters. All right. So that was the article. But we're witnessing, man, these prophecies on the Bible and these scriptures come to life, man, right here before our eyes. All right. So it's this, like the scripture said, there shall be wars and rumors of wars. See that you've been not troubled. But these things must happen, for the end is not yet. So we still got to wait on the MOTB, which is the microchip, to be pushed on a mass scale. And you already see them preparing for that. And once that's happened, that's the hour of temptation. Once that goes forth, man, here comes our salvation. All right. Lord willing, this lesson will edify and serve its purpose. With that, I'd like to say, Ka Halayim La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Harikak Radash, my mouth. Double honors to the elder apostles, a great millstone, and my elder Herawan as well. Salutations to the Akim that are pushing the truth and sincerity and truth. And peace and blessing to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom.